Oh no, Bats has gotten bits. Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse DC vs. Vampires Batman. As a child, Bruce Wayne watched as his parents were brutally killed in Gotham City's crime alley. Traumatized by their deaths, he devoted his life to becoming the world's greatest weapon against crime, the Batman. To become the ultimate vigilante, the Dark Knight disciplined his mind and body to reach the pinnacle of mental and physical superiority in his relentless pursuit of justice. Awfully late for a bite to eat, Bruce? While Batman has a case of the munchies, let's grab the tape measure just to see how tall the DC versus Vampires Batman stands. And the answer to that question is about 17 inches. If your next question was, what would it be in centimeters? Let me throw the answer out to you at 18 centimeters tall. If you didn't already know, this is using the same Batman body as the Hush Batman that we just recently had a look at. Trying carefully not to knock them over with their capes. Their capes are so wide. I've taken the time and actually shot this part of the review several times because this Batman ended up getting knocked over because I brought that Batman in and, well, anyways. Yeah, they are using the same body, and I did want to bring in the blue cowl version because I thought it was the better of the two between this one and the black cowl, but you can see that they would have retooled a brand new head sculpt, obviously, but then the rest of the body, making up the torso, the arms, and the legs, are all seeming to be shared with the blue cowl Batman. Another comparison we can also make, not to knock the cape, here's what he also looks like with the Three Jokers Batman. Another bigger, broader Bats. There is one thing that disappoints me right away with this figure, and that's the trading card that comes included with him. No, not the case that this time around they've used figure photography. Rather, instead, they've used a really cool looking, eerie looking image of Batman. That's not the part that bothers me so much. It's the fact that if you flip around the back of the card, the paragraph, if you are familiar with these by now, happens to be the same read-up that I've done at least, I don't know, a dozen or so times. It's that go-to one that tells us right away that he watched his parents brutally killed in Gotham City's crime alley. I've done this countless times. I wish that they could have put a paragraph read in here, more specific to DC versus vampires, not just a generic Batman. I mean, when I look at a character as cool as this Batman, I want to know more about him, and unfortunately, what we get on the back of the card just doesn't cut it for me. I believe the DC versus Vampires was actually first done way back when, I think like 2021, so a couple of years ago, and it took place in Earth 63. You don't get any mention of that at all here on the back of the card. This is one thing. They deliver it nicely here on the front. I wish they equally could have delivered it well on the back of the card by giving us a proper, within context, actually read up specific to this story. Either way, I'm going to put that to the side. One thing also that I'm just about to go to the Bat Axe, but one thing just before doing that, the figure also comes included with a slightly more faded looking DC logo. Just to grab one off to the side here, not that I was preparing this, but here's a regular DC stand. I'm just using it by comparison here that sometimes we get ourselves these stands and they seem to be faded in black. I guess they're using and changing the plastic a little bit, but also one thing you'll notice too is, and it's likely just the way they've printed this, you'll see the DC logo results in having the peg lower down in the stand. It should really be up here, and I'm only again basing it from this one right here, that they actually in fact printed the DC logo in the wrong place. Not a deal breaker at all. Just again, something I wanted to mention. I will use the display stand as this Batman, as the times before when we looked at Hush Batman's body, he has a little bit of a harder time to get him to stand properly. He seems to be standing okay right now, knock on wood, but I don't know how long that's going to last. The figure, though, comes also included with a battle axe. I'm sure somebody was going to comment that down below in the comment section. I wanted to beat you to it. A battle axe, as you can see, that does have the bat logo in the middle. That's very much a similar type of bat logo that we've gotten from the Nolan trilogy universe. As you can see, it's got it's got also little rivet points on there as well. A really cool looking sword. I love how it's got all the little marks in there as he certainly has used it. It's not sharp to the point where I feel like I'm going to be cutting myself. Although I don't know if I probably should keep doing this. The actual blades, the parts of the head of the axe actually seem to be a slightly shinier silver than the more matte silver in the middle. Then you've got a very decorative looking handle. Of course, Batman's going to be carrying in his hand, and it seems to be as well, he's got a metal spike on the end of it. Good for impaling vampires. Of course, a little too late now. This does plug into his hand, but he only plugs in on this side of the figure's body because this hand actually is a gestured hand. We're going to talk more about these hands also in a moment, but it does slide into his hand. Fairly easy, in fact. Just take this. I mean, you can slide it down if you prefer, or you can also pry the plastic just away, move the fingers a little bit away from the palm. Batman does have his battle axe. Battle axe. Like I said, though, the other hand, literally on the other hand, is actually more of a clawing hand. I don't know if you can actually see it. Batman's been into the chocolate pudding? I don't think so. I don't think so. It looks like it's blood, and fairly fresh blood, too. Batman's been busy. He actually has blood on both his sides. What's funny, though, is he has blood on his hands, and yet he doesn't seem to have blood anywhere else on the rest of the figure's body. I guess he's just lucky when it comes to getting blood splattered all over his suit. Let's go ahead and take the axe out of his hand for right now. I'm going to put that to the side, get a closer look at Batman here. And again, we've already talked about the idea it's using the same bat body, but I got to tell you, man, look at the head sculpt on this one. Sinister. The head sculpt has some of the cues that we've already looked at before with the Batman, Hush Batman. Again, we're just going to bring in the Batman. I just dropped the display base, but just bear with me. The regular neutral head sculpt of Batman, you can see, has a lot of very similar aspects to what we get here now with the Batman DC versus Vampires Batman. Of course, the coloring on his skin is very marginally different. Batman looks like he's already started to decay. The head sculpt, as you can see, one thing that also does have there is the fact he does have teeth. Very sharp vampire teeth. At least it looks like they're slightly sharp. Maybe they're not. But he does have blood, again, all over his lip. No blood. Missed opportunity, perhaps, that there wasn't a little bit of blood trickling down his face. But it looks like he's got a few little blood splatters there. Again, I love the off-coloring of his skin. The eyes are more red, of course, than the traditional white that we're used to seeing for Batman. Again, in this case, they've decided to go the route of, well, in the designing, at least, of the character in the comics, they went black cowl instead of blue. You can see the way they've even outlined the areas of his ears. Just, again, such a sinister... Oh, I love this head sculpt on this Batman. Shorter ears on this one also as well. Like the one that we also looked at before, the articulation. I don't want to jump right to articulation on this guy, but the articulation... So his neck's going to be all kind of one piece to his head. The only downside, unfortunately, to that is always I have to have these figures with the head a little more forward, where it gives you a little more of a seamless look from the base of the neck down into the cape. If you have the head too far back, then you have sort of this rounded part that sort of bulges at the base of the neck. So you want to just bring it forward a little bit further. I mean, I could honestly just spend the whole entire review just focused only on just the head alone, but obviously you guys will want to see the rest of what's going on here. Now, the outfit is considerably dark, and not only is it like dark, but it seems to be more like a brownish gray. I would have to, again, go back and look at the comics again. I don't think the comics actually have a suit as brownish as what we actually get right here. It's, though, using, again, that same body as the Hush Batman before. So, again, we can bring in that Batman body. Right down to, as well, his emblem. The emblem is exactly the same shared between the two figures. Now, where this Batman would have had, of course, a gestured hand, it wasn't to this one. Certainly where it looks like he's going to be clawing somebody's face. The utility belt also seems to be different, or it seems to be the same, but different in color. More of a mustard yellow in the original blue cowl Batman. Now what we're getting here is sort of, I don't know what you would consider this, like a dark caramel color. I mean, it does have still the pockets in the same placement. The pockets seem to be pretty much the same size all the way around. The thing about the costuming being as dark as this, it's a harder time as well to see the emblem. Almost it blends in for how dark this dark coloring of the suit actually is. The trunks is also something that gets a little bit lost, being the color of the choice of the brown that they end up going with. I don't know if I love the brown, but I like the darker colors that it sort of invokes. Like the overall aesthetic of Batman is a very dark, grimy looking Cape Crusader. Of course, his cape is going to be exactly the same as before. Need the reference? Okay, all right, fine. Here, the other cape, as you can see, is exactly the same. One thing I really liked about the Hush Batman, which I may have even said in the review of him, was I love the way they sculpted the cape, especially the bottom of it. And you got to say, like, it works really well transitioning him to a vampire Batman, as this sort of looks like the wings of a bat. Again, like when it comes to the figure's features, pretty much all still cosmetic. The sculpting is going to be exactly the same as the Hush Batman we looked at before, but again, the colors change a little bit more darker here. A little bit more of that kind of sinister dark color I really, really like. But primarily, the big thing about this one that sells this figure, I hope, the most, is just the awesome head sculpt that they sculpted. And as well, paint that I have to say delivers exactly what I would want for a vampire Batman. Did I also mention that he has some blood on the top of his cowl? Guess I didn't mention it. It's right there as well. For the articulation here on Vampire Batman, his head's going to be on the same ball joint. We already talked about this, so we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it again. But the head rotates all the way around. It does look up, and it does look down. Actually, quite brooding as well. I love that. And you can also rock the head back and forth also as well. The shoulders allow Batman to hinge his arms out at 90-degree angle bend. You can take those same said arms and rotate them all the way around on both the sides. Figure has a bicep swivel. Figure has a bicep swivel. Obviously, stating the obvious, it's the same on both the sides. Figure does have a double hinge on the elbow also as well. And the hands rotate all the way around. You're only getting one pair of hands, obviously, in this release. The upper torso on Batman does have a ball joint. In addition to that, the figure does also have a double hinge, or I should say a secondary ball joint at the base. So I guess technically a double hinge in his torso. Joint up there, joint down here. And between the two, you can actually collectively rotate his upper body quite a lot. The legs do split. Once again, seem to be relying on ratcheted joints. You can get about that much of a splits for Vampire Batman. You can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. And there's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh. Not to mention as well, the figure does have a double hinge on the knee. No articulation for the boot. The boot, once again, is just a continued sculpt from the rest of the calf. But he does at least have articulation in the ankle, not only allowing it to hinge back and forth this way, but an ankle rocker and toe articulation to boot. The figure is fantastic. I don't even know if I really would want to display him with the battle axe. Really, I'll stop doing that. But it's a nice looking Batman figure. He is, again, a little off-kilter when it comes to his standing ability because, again, just the way they've designed the ankles and so much plastic goes into the sculpting of this figure that I would probably display this guy most definitely with a display stand. And again, just to slide this guy over to see what we already looked at this guy before with this mold. Yeah, you know, again, like, get more mileage out of this mold, whatever you do. Like, if it means that we get brand new figures of Batman, I know there's a lot of exhaustion when it comes to Batman figures because we're getting so many of them from McFarlane's team. But when it comes to these things, like these kind of Batmans, though, yeah, mini-series when it came to Vampire Batman here, but I say welcome, bring them on, get more of these Batmans released because I really like the mold and what they did here with the blue cowl Batman. And I gotta say, I loved how it was transitioned here to a Vampire Batman with a brand new, cooler looking head sculpt. Somewhat ironic that we're looking at the DC versus Vampire Batman because just recently, in fact, announced online, the team over at McFarlane Toys have now just shown images of the DC versus Vampires Joker, a classic looking clown Prince of Crime with things not quite right in his face because, hate to give anything away, he's also been turned into said vampire. These are going to go rather nicely on display. But for the meantime, while we don't have Joker released just yet, we have a really cool looking Batman that's going to go on the shelf along with his battle axe. I'm sure anyone's going to be playing up that pun down below in the comments section. I like really the look of the axe. While I initially didn't think I was going to be displaying along with Batman, it's too cool of an axe to put back in the packaging, even though I've destroyed the packaging. Too good to be put back into a Ziploc baggie. It also brings a little bit of much needed color because the coloring of Batman's suit in this case, along with his utility belt, which normally would be a brighter yellow, everything about this guy is really dingy. There's something not quite right about Batman, obviously. He's got blood all over his hands. Looks like he's been eating something. Something's not quite right with Batman is an understatement. But I love the designing of the head sculpt here. Using one of the best Batmans that I feel we've gotten from McFarlane's team in the last little while, using that Hush Batman body, it does result in the figure having a little more of a keltering standing issue because of the way they've designed the ankles. That's what the display stands are there for anyways. Nice looking Batman though. Very excited for what we're going to be getting with that DC versus Vampires Joker. In the meantime, though, not to get too ahead of ourselves, what do you guys think of the DC versus Vampires Batman? Isn't this a cool looking Batman? I know, again, there's exhaustion by the fact we've got so many Batman figures. When you think of where the line has started, how long ago it started, and how many Batmans we've gotten since, there may be a little bit of exhaustion for the fact that we've gotten so many Batman figures. But the ones that do stand out for me, the little key ones, the fun ones like these guys here, make me still happy when we ever get a new Batman release. If we can get more cool characters like a Vampire Batman, then yes, again, sign me up. But what do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Is this a Batman? Even though you may or may not be exhausted by the line so far, is this in fact a Batman figure you'd like to pick up and add to your collection? Let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of Vampire Batman. Also as well, if you don't mind me asking, did you enjoy this video? If you did, why not hit with a like? If you're loving the content you're seeing, have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. Because while we have wrapped up things right now for the DC vs. Vampires Batman, there will be more DC Multiverse reviews coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.